Greetings, YouTube. Church Paul here with the question of the day. What is the last prophecy in the Old Testament? Malachi 4 verses 5 and 6 says, "Behold, I am going to send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. He will restore the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, so that I not come and smite the land with a curse." Malachi, the last book in the Old Testament. And in this last chapter, in the second to last verse, Malachi 4, verse 5, God warns his people, the Jews, that he will send his prophet Elijah before he returns in judgment and wrath. And in the last verse of the last chapter of the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi 4 and verse 6, we hear that God will use Elijah to restore the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Wow. You might think, what an odd and unexpected thing to say at this point, especially after hearing about his wrath in the preceding verses. You might expect it to end with a warning like, "And be ready and prepared for the coming of the Lord, live holy lives," etc., etc. But no, it ends by telling us about the restoration of fathers to children and children to fathers. And note, he specifically mentions fathers here, not mothers or parents. But why would God tell us of this event right before his return? Of all the things he could have prophesied and warned us against, he chose this issue, this restoring. And why does he specifically mention fathers? Well, this issue is obviously paramount to God and of utmost importance because he knows the importance of a good, healthy relationship between a father and his son and a father and his daughter. It's the key to a godly home, where fathers are called to lead and sacrifice for their family the same way that Christ sacrificed for the church. Ephesians 5:25. But what happens in the last days? What happens before his return that makes this prophecy true? And what happens in the end times that destroys relationships between fathers and their children? How could a father's heart be set apart from his children? Fathers love their children, right? So how could this terrible thing happen to where God sends his prophet to correct it? What have we done as humans to make this happen? Well, I believe we are seeing this prophecy unfold right before our very eyes, and I believe that this is yet another sign of the soon return of Christ. One could easily say of our day that relationships between many fathers and their children are severely broken. And there's many reasons for it, and yes, there are a lot of negligent fathers out there who have abandoned their kids and left them, which is disgraceful. But it's also clear these days that men and fathers are being marginalized in our culture and even in our church sometimes. Men have lost their rightful place in the home and in society and are told that moms can raise kids just as fine without a man around. It's a real tragedy. And unfortunately, it has manifested itself into children not wanting to be with their fathers. Again, for many reasons. Broken families, bad divorces, an unhealthy culture that glamorizes children being disrespectful to parents and being independent of them. But just as tragic nonetheless. But don't lose heart, Christian. We live in a fallen world, and we know these things will happen. But I pray that you take heed to Malachi 4 and verse 6. And do not become one of these fathers that needs to be restored to your children, or one of these children that needs to be restored to your father. Know how important these relationships are to God, and follow His words of advice to improve them day by day as you wait for His return. Ephesians 6:1-4 says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you, and that you may live long on the earth. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord." May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine His face upon you and be gracious toward you. And may the Lord give you peace.